Ringo Starr reveals George Harrison's final words to him was a bittersweet joke on his deathbed. It is tempting to imagine the Beatles as a massive phenomenon in the world of music, a machine that chewed up the established order and spewed 4 fresh and revitalizing records at a rate of knots. In fact, it is extremely difficult to disentangle the band's mystique and the years of persistent mythologizing from the 4 lads from Liverpool who comprised the band. This is because the mystique was built up over the course of many years. However, if you want to be reminded of the wonderful camaraderie that they shared behind the music and Ringo Starr's revelation about George Harrison's final words on his deathbed, stick around to the end of this video. It is a striking reminder of the importance of friendship in the formation of Beatles as a band and as individuals. What do you think George Harrison's final word to his bandmate Ringo Starr were? Tell us in the comments section. Ringo Starr, the drummer for the band, vividly recalls the last words he and George Harrison, the late great lead guitarist of the band and esteemed songwriter, spoke to one another. And these words serve as a poignant reminder of the treasured relationship that existed between the two of them. The members of the Beatles were able to resolve most of their disagreements before John Lennon and George Harrison passed away, despite the fact that the band's career may have ended on a bad note because of the undesired legal processes that looked to be so relevant to their demise. Unfortunately, George Harrison passed away in 2001, having fought cancer for a significant portion of his life. It was a terrible time for fans of the band, of course, as well as for Harrison's family, which included his son Danny and the bandmates with whom he experienced some of the most extraordinary experiences of his life. The following year, a memorial concert called Concert for George was held to commemorate his passing. At the concert, Danny and an all-star band paid tribute to one of the most talented songwriters of the 20th century. It was one of the most magnificent celebrations of a cultural icon that the world has ever seen, featuring some compelling performances and poignant tributes. It continues to be one of the most wonderful celebrations of a cultural icon that the world has ever known. The performance will be remembered as one of the most significant milestones in the career of the man who played the guitar. The songs that George Harrison wrote moved a great number of listeners, and through his work with the Traveling Wilburys, he once again succeeded. At the show, stellar performances were given by friends Ringo Starr and Tom Petty. It is a testament to the excellence of a revered performer as well as an indispensable lyricist, the kind of songwriter who garnered praise and intrigue for his unusual use of Eastern spirituality within his work and the message of peace and unity that it promoted. This kind of songwriter is referred to as the kind of songwriter who gathered acclaim and intrigue. Harrison didn't only bring the sitar to the 60s, he also brought a whole new way of thinking, which was largely inspired by his time spent studying with Ravi Shankar. Because George Harrison was a significant person in the world of music, despite the fact he was nicknamed the Quiet Beatle, his passing was immediately followed by an outpouring of tributes and documentaries focusing on his life. In the aforementioned documentary, Ringo Starr was asked to reflect on his time spent with George Harrison, both as a bandmate and as a friend. In the clip that followed, he shared the final words Harrison said to him, providing a glimpse into the kind of person Harrison was. Ringo recalls that George spent the final weeks of his life in Switzerland, and he does so with a trembling lip and a tear in his eye. The last week of George's life, Ringo says, and I went to visit him, he continued. He was in really bad shape. He had no choice but to lie down. And while he was sick, I came to him. But at the same time, I was planning a trip to Boston because my daughter had been diagnosed with a brain tumor. I said, I gotta go to Boston. And he went, says Ringo, pausing for air as the memory takes him over. These were the last words I actually heard him say, Ringo continued. It was the last thing I saw him do, he asked. Would you like for me to come along with you? Laughter. The thought that Harrison could even leave his bed seemed ridiculous, but it was evident that he was eager to do anything for his friend Ringo. It was clear that Harrison was willing to do anything for his friend Ringo. Wow. I had no idea George had such a great side. It's obvious that Ringo wasn't comfortable with the exposed emotion, and this could be due to the fact that he's simply a working class kid from Liverpool, or it could be due to some outdated notions of what it means to be a man. Ringo is not the type of person who is comfortable opening out so honestly, so he quickly uses humor to deflect away. God, it's like Barbara Walters in here, the person exclaimed. Ringo Starr has been burdened by the untimely passing of George Harrison for a significant amount of time. He often thinks back to the exact moment he found out about the death of his bandmate, remarking, "I'm emotional now, thinking of him 40 years ago, talking about me on his tape and thinking of me." Harrison's death came as a shock to Ringo Starr. The four of us had a wonderful friendship despite the fact we had a few disagreements, and it was in a remote location. In any case, I had no idea how to behave, the drummer admitted at one point. Starr proceeded by reminiscing about the days that immediately followed Harrison's passing, saying, "And then I got to go back to LA and I grieved. And then of course, you always go through the sadness." And the same goes for George. He begins to sniffle and his voice begins to quaver. "I'm such an old baby. He is currently lying there terribly unwell, and his time here is limited. And unfortunately, I won't be able to be here since my daughter needs surgery in Boston." And so I said, "Well, you know, George, I've got to go." And he said, "Do you want me to come with you?" So I went on my way. "You should probably go on now because he's going to pass away in a little while. Do you want me to come with you?" How many people truly devote themselves to you despite saying wonderful things to you like that? Ringo Starr felt driven, not long after George Harrison passed away in 2001, to pay respect to him in a different and arguably more fitting way through the music that George Harrison had written. Ringo Starr paid tribute to his friend by writing this song with Gary Nicholson and Marl Hudson, which was included in Ringo's album titled Ringo Rama, which was released in 2003. Starr made the following observation regarding the song. Gary Nicholson began the tune and Mark brought it over, and we saw that we could modify it. In an interview given in 2003, Ringo Starr stated that since the breakup of the Beatles, he had remained closest friends with George, and that for him, the song wonderfully summed up how I miss him in my heart and in music. George was definitely on my mind at the time. Eric Clapton, a friend of the George Harrison's, contributed to the recording of the tribute song by playing the lead guitar part. This adds another special touch to the recording. Clapton uses Harrison's preferred technique, the slide guitar, to perfectly encapsulate both the song and George. Ringo Starr said the following about Clapton's contribution to the track. "Eric's on 2 tracks on the album, but I really wanted him on this song because George loved Eric and Eric loved George." So, what are your thoughts on today's video? Please let us know in the comment section below. And if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss any of our incredible videos posted in the future. Keep an eye out for the next video. Bye for now.